Anyway, Sam is on. Let's take a look.
Seder, what a fucking nightmare.
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you again.
I've been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over
we're
the years.
all. It's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the H3 channel, yes. I
want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and then I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that explains why.
Is on go in his chat? What do you mean?
He may no. Yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly,
what do you mean?
I don't know what to do because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people. But I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi
Why would
shit,
I go in his chat?
Yeah, this was yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that. I just assumed you didn't want to respond, but.
Okay, well, that's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know, like, the whole lore of it, the background of it.
I don't. I mean, this is all I know is that Hasan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October. And my thought we were just going to do this off air, but
that's what I wanted.
My
I was
understanding
like,
is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only myself as a in any form.
Well,
whatsoever.
Sam, allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
Please.
No, actually, I mean, that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hasan. But basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel.
He's going to be like, that's faulty data, it's bullshit.
I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that, and I don't know if you're quite, if you agree with that or not, I can pull it up.
American Jews saying Israel's important to them. Israel's important to me, but that doesn't mean that I like Israel.
At least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong.
That is just
and
a
I said,
question
who are you to
answered
talk about
by
this? I did not
diaspora Jews about whether Israel is important to them or not. That doesn't mean that they're Zionists. Israel's important to me in my life as well.
That's not what I took him to say, but yeah, I mean, Hasan is that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat. Yeah. Which is different than positive per se. So but regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was I would say 1/3 Holocaust, and I'm older, and so this was in the 70s, 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, Hebrew and Jewish culture, and I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I guess I think what the poll attempts to, basically, if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left, I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe this. So it's like if you think
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not. But it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one, is it, Dan? There's the one that shows 73%.
Dude, he's saying just because you have an attachment to Israel doesn't mean
anyway,
that you're
it doesn't really
Zionist.
matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel, being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, et cetera, right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that. So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently I will only listen to other Jewish people. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you. As the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Seder, everybody.
No one said that.
100% Ashkenazi.
That is also a mischaracterization. He has,
I haven't
lived experience,
but
and he trusts.
I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. My friend, I'm 99.3%, so that's my that's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say I got about an hour.
Okay, great.
Get
I'll just get into it then. Here it is.
Not enough. That's not enough time, matters, Uncle.
Okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with a little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay. Let's just enjoy this image together. Tim Pool recently at a wedding.
Wait, what?
And can you see? Can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I would. I'm aware of his beanie attachment.
Bro!
So I don't know.
Why are you filibustering the conversation?
Fine look for our good friend Tim Pool. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of like heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an opinion.
I got to be honest with you. I have not heard much. I have, like, the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky, I'm also on Blue Sky, is just this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it. But I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And, the personal aspects of this, and I don't believe that people. I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted.
This is not going well.
Try to be fired or whatever, or have CPS sicked on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing, and what is happening in Gaza. And
so I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel-Gaza Palestinian dispute situation for a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was with my wife early
Sam
on.
Doesn't know the full scope
here's my
of his
position right after October 7th, and you can tell me if you have any. If you have any comments on any of my positions here, but this was posted on. This was from our episode a few days after October 7th.
Showcase himself as like pro-Palestinian unconditionally.
Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel. Okay, listen. This isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs. Okay, they're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. Okay, he's made a coalition of the most radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis, and they're hellbent on genocide. Frankly, overtly, they've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children. Obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 50% of the residents are under 18. So when you bomb a building.
I wonder
the chances that
I wonder what the background of this show is that he's on, where he's saying these things.
Okay, it's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting.
What is Chad saying?
I've seen videos. I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his
Hasan
dead 5-year-old daughter.
I was there for this conversation. I know all of this.
I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional.
This
but
is precisely
I mean, so
the
that was
reason
my
why-
take right
This
after
is precisely the
October
reason why
7th,
I
and
literally
obviously
thought Ethan
that
was
coming
with the
off
cause
end of
for the
me
longest
being,
time.
Like, kind of, I mean, I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that
Damn,
emotional,
he's so brave. Thank you, Ethan, for saying Palestinians are humans and Israel is doing a genocide even after October 7th.
My reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I mean, I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary, and there was a question as to whether Israelis would.
He's going to say Sam agrees with me and he hates you because you're anti-Semitic. That's like his goal here is to be like, why have you called me a Zionist when Sam believes that I'm not?
Places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later, after
so
you
much
said
more
those things,
since then, so it's like disingenuous for him to present that.
This is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So I can't say if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza that they wouldn't change their mind, but I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started. And I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded
it's not a war, it's
and
a genocide.
radicalized. I think people in Israel.
It's not just Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's really,
it's Zionism.
I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear. And obviously, like, that's a much more nuanced conversation, but the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
Not a war, it's a genocide.
And I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up. We killed in Iraq. Depending on what numbers you want to look at, but. I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students. And I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country, I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
two people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, people.
No, absolutely.
People
I
who
agree,
are uninvolved in the war, if they're being like victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
and you can care about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously, one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse. And what's happening in Gaza?
But who should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course, who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but. I would put it in the context of
which I agree with.
You're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them, and it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
I got to stop you because I don't think I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I mean, I just said like you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place, and then the Israelis, right? So like when you're talking about,
in terms of the way that you characterized the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of like we are
Sam will not let Ethan talk.
Committing, like you say, genocidal acts. And if people want to call it genocide, I don't. Obviously it's got to be. It's a legal term, but I think that it's colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue. I think is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people, I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you. Like obviously the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims.
That Ethan is being
after
narcissistic
everything that's happened,
for
obviously,
centering himself in this conversation about how he's been victimized as though he's the biggest victim of this entire fucking genocide
of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. Lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with
trying to
Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally and like even the information that they're consuming, I think, that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening
there
necessarily.
are some. I mean,
there are some.
I'm so sorry. They're just simply little old, most powerful country in the region and its citizenry that's championing this
what was going on there.
Of children.
And the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down.
He moved on from him being the victim
to some extent.
Israelis being the victims.
Well, so what's your explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think, look, there's, I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. I think some of it is, frankly, is a racism. I think, how can you explain, how can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their heads I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. And I think, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is, maybe some type of mass failure to deal with trauma. I mean, I don't know all those things. I think, part of it. I think there's some of the makeup of immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it.
We had this conversation before.
I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond this sort of vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I agree.
From my perspective, it's gobsmacking, and to me, it has shown, and I never
very well
identified myself as a Zionist as a kid, or through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think those wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I have I don't really care one way or another how I'm labeled, but to me it shows a failure of that system of government that Israel has.
It's Zionism. That is the problem.
It has failed both.
And Ethan will never reconcile that.
What I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the
Hannah Arendt.
19th century.
Hannah Arendt.
It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. It seems to be have been a massive failure. And so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or Zionists are doing, and so that's where I'm coming.
This is really important.
This
conversation is great to have. I'm so glad he did this.
Know
I'm so glad Ethan did
if
this.
There is a psychological state that can justify this.
Oh no, they're too stupid to understand it though.
I don't think there is, and so
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because it is what it is, right? Like it is the way that it is, and so that's for a reason. And it's just it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable. Yeah.
And
we're talking about like military and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs and shit.
Every
if they need, like, they don't need American military.
Yes,
I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt. And
what I mean is they're not entitled to it. To say more accurately. Yeah. So I think military aid should be cut for sure until.
As a Jew, and obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew,
Ethan W. They're so desperate for Ethan to come across as even remotely
to what is being done,
anti-Zionist,
ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. I think it's I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know.
By the way, I think Ethan is in agreement with Sam here.
Great.
He's walking back a lot of his positions, but I don't think Gila is in agreement with Sam
I agree with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why this chasm started between me and, Hasan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement, for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality.
All the way up until the context nuke.
Is
I didn't know the depravity.
Him not supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. That's and like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check to do whatever you want.
They're watching me as well.
Like
it just came out that Biden didn't did nothing to. Listen, I think.
I'm talking about Kamala.
I suspect that
we don't know. We don't know what Kamala would have done.
I suspect I suspect.
Like, sure, it'll be marginally better, but we don't know.
She would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level, like it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope her difference would have been.
That's the reason why she lost. That was my point.
Had implications in the election, but I think
from Biden's
perhaps even more importantly,
genocidal Gaza policy,
it would have
not removing herself, not severing her ties from Biden early on. That was my major point of contention with the Kamala Harris campaign, and that's what led her to lose.
I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils, but
yeah, me too. And I think that that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah,
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think, you know,
I understand why they didn't. I totally understand the perspective. Like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time, like a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan,
I never told people not to vote for Kamala.
On people, I think,
and who's someone who not to vote for Kamala Harris. That is a lie.
Who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally.
I hate Jill Stein.
But either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her. Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer and you know basically you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, you know, I certainly have been critical of people who, you know, generally don't vote for the lesser of two evils. But I think, you know, and certainly, you know, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly that was my perspective. But again, you know,
I don't know why he lies about this.
What the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability.
Yes, of course, he's using Sam to try and trash talk me by lying.
You know, I think
I literally have made
sometimes you have to take this at face value, and I think there would be certainly definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government.
Why does he lie about this?
Like Trump
it's such a basic, easy to comprehend principle.
You know, I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old.
Why does he lie about this?
Really,
I voted on stream.
Condemn someone from taking that
I never
position
told people to vote for Jill Stein.
based upon what we were seeing.
I told people
not just some random person. I do, and I'll tell you why.
Be worse than Kamala
Harris wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said, "Finish them." I mean, let's be honest.
Like for someone like Hasan, I want to ceasefire.
I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not talking about Biden.
No, I understand, but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. So.
Well,
like, you know,
you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
I mean,
well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No. But I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president, said he wanted a ceasefire. She as a candidate said, I want a ceasefire.
But do not, even if you're like, I don't know how much I trust them.
He is not knowledgeable enough to have an adult conversation on this. I'm sorry. It's obvious.
Well, listen,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
You know, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like, if you're trying to get the candidate to
I'm doing a pee break.
Show some indication of this, you know, I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, and I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen. And like that, it feels like, you know, it
also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice, and I think, you know, you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump, but they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But you know, I don't. I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se, but.
Well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hasan and how this kid. I'm sorry. Well, let me show you this.
I don't care. Yeah, about, I know. Honestly, I'm like
Let me show you this. This is
I'm
more.
Not, I don't. honestly. Like,
yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care. I don't.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something. And again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip, but I'll show it to you. And you tell me what you think.
It's clip chimped. This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a rabid neo-Nazi, and you shouldn't even let someone be the local dog catcher as Felix was posting. Yep. If they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone that's had positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I don't want my fucking Zionist family members to be in office either.
And I'll tell you what I think is really.
Sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you like. If you look at what's happening right now and you have positive feelings about Israel,
he said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear, about what he said.
Don't try to fucking.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, like the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond this?
No,
like I say, I don't care about this, but if you're going to force me to respond to it, what Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me.
Maybe Sam needs more context to see how vitriolic Hasan is.
Understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now, you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that's
not what I said.
Too broad a step. But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about
they're sending skulls to the man's house.
poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation,
of your background,
I think is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I will tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, call my father and ask him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just one, that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews.
Yes.
It is a fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men, for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time.
He's right.
Look, you do a show
Sam,
4 hours a day. He does a show 5 or, as far as I can tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam. You don't know. This is a totality of behavior.
But you.
And by the way, it's easy. And I appreciate that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying this.
You're saying it doesn't. You're saying actually I'm wrong.
You know exactly what I mean there.
In fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous.
It
is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous
right now,
to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing violent language for American Jews.
That
have nothing to do with the
that
war.
is a complete mischaracterization of it.
And that is what's
not
dangerous.
He's not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word Jews.
He says a
Listen. How many members of Kufi have positive feelings towards Israel? How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so it is not specifically.
Perhaps these people will not finally understand.
It describes most Christian evangelicals too.
It may do them too, but it also describes 73% of
that
Jews.
Is not anti-Semitism. That is about
I don't know.
What
do you call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
you can say the same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism.
I wouldn't be able to have this conversation because Ethan would just be like, "You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater."
In isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you're the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to talk about it.
I disagree with you.
But I'm using your example, and in that instance. That is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
For Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
Why would he?
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous to what I perceive as hand waving what's happening here. I know you said you aren't doing that.
I'm not hand waving.
You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous to.
I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, Jewish people have a collective memory of trauma, Sam, and it starts a certain way. And it starts with people. It starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean, what are we doing here? It's irresponsible language.
He's not talking about Jews.
He's talking about 73% of Jewish people.
No, you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not, because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad have?
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you describe
say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians.
If he wants his dad to be appointed to local office, and Sam would say no.
Your father, who you mentioned, said something to you that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel.
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
Not in terms of like I support them, but
I think positive feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit to walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's literally what he said. I'll play it again.
Thank you. I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a rabid neo-Nazi, and you shouldn't even let someone be the local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hasan
listen,
he plays around with the term Zionists, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews.
Yes.
He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians.
Yes.
More Christians.
Okay, well, listen, I don't
think your background.
He's not fit to walk dogs, either.
Yes,
I think it's insane language.
Listen, you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, and we do that.
Yeah, you're right. I just think that,
It's, listen, you can say
I just
it's an
think
inappropriate
that, like,
thing to say. It's an unfair thing to say.
I just think like Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're at an impasse on this one.
No, the dog walker is a local.
But anyway, another thing.
colloquialism that Felix Biederman,
and he's
also
someone that
Jewish,
plays around
used.
with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hasan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies. What does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to him on Friday. You can ask him what a Zionist tendency is.
Zionism
I suppose I would guess, and like I've looked at polls too, where people have various different understandings of what
Zionism is.
Why is he trying to debate me on this? But I think it is
Hasan up so much.
My
Ethan is trying to fight Hasan through
and
Sam.
I don't know what he was thinking specifically.
Watch
but
Ethan back away from our supposed
state
debate on Friday now, because now he didn't get what he wanted out of Sam.
Whatever in the name of Zionism allows this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
And he's not able to extract. He's not able to extract what he wanted out of Sam.
I disagree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is, like, to take it even further. I mean, Hasan pretty much openly supports Hamas.
Let's not talk about Hasan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I
think he's gonna back away now that he's not getting what he wanted.
I'm not here to explore.
I have a list of things
but if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think, look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists in this country. We call the ANC terrorists. What
do you think about them, Sam?
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is
the exact same opinion as I do.
An understanding of human nature.
Saying it from a perspective.
That you're not supporting Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
Because he can't hit him on this.
Well, you're not. You're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring because I asked you if you think they're evil, and you didn't really answer that.
His audience thinks
I don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that we have there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA. Even the PLO,
now, Sam,
that ultimately become a political organization.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous. And I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible.
Twice they asked Nelson Mandela, if you disavow
violence,
we will let you go free.
By the way, Sam, in the totality of their campaign,
you are wrong.
I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did. That's a difference, Sam.
About this?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that
a significant difference.
He stayed in prison. His
prison
sentence was
a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And so
what does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's accountability.
Being killed? Okay. But I mean being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf.
But you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, I was saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
That's not true.
The ANC did.
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in England and throughout Ireland. I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang when they killed, over 100
I would not compare
villagers
Irgun to the IRA, by the way.
In 1948. I mean, the history is full of examples of organizations that commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, and which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say like I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying like, what do you expect,
MK
right?
paramilitary wing of the
truth
ANC
is that people
bombing campaign that killed 19 people,
South Africa as an
200.
example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
They were violent.
Well, I mean, listen, we had for a year we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever, that were innocent people who went there, and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally,
that's the reason why he went to
this,
prison.
My attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as like you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say,
but I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, because none of it's working out, is it?
No, not much at all. Not really much at all.
It's called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society is not protecting Jews.
Well,
it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is, there may have been a time where Zionism and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. Folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of commiseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again, Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them, and
that's fine.
He's far closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons. So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah,
I mean, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware.
He's gonna hit the rape stuff now, probably.
That the dance.
The Nova rave.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian
you leave out that they attacked kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they. I don't know what the strategy was on their part.
So what do you think? Like, would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day. That Israel was going to respond.
Go insane. Right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond. Frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy what is it, 80-90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals
as well.
That they would use
Well, Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
Food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in like the justification for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, this is all conjecture on my part. That they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing, and I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going I'm not going to endorse Hamas's strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is what I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen. You know?
I can't imagine that they
it's an act of desperation
assumed that this
born out of
there would be this level
cruelty.
of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far. I
didn't think they'd go this far, but
bomb hospitals.
Okay, so why the fuck are you defending Israel and the Zionist project in any capacity, Ethan?
Have rules of engagement
Hamas
like this.
Thought that Israel would have a semblance of humanity for its own hostages. They were wrong. How was that anybody else's fault other than Israel?
Criticism for their strategy here. If
that's an understatement.
Ethan is blaming the genocide of Palestinians on Hamas once again.
Well, I mean, they're a terrorist organization
way to try and defend Israel.
Antagonized like the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that if they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's.
I'm really disappointed.
I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this was their plan.
Community is like full-blown Zionist.
To have Israel respond in this way, that's absurd.
The same is true of I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like it was totally unprecedented.
No shot. They're literally fucking going. They're telling Sam.
Maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was
on
the other hand.
I have no doubt that
Who are you?
They did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology of Israel's fence, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated the IDF.
Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able to,
oh my God, it's bad.
What kind of destruction they would wreak, and they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetate on Gaza. I don't know that anyone could have imagined that Israel would
someone can be to explain the situation. And these guys are just going crazy. They're treating him like they treat me.
Commiseration and bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying
Sam is hard
the infrastructure.
To listen to.
I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
You think that's a good
There's
point?
Not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Oh, no, he's doing hospital points. Oh,
okay.
Sam's going to cook them.
That's interesting. It's pretty fucked up.
What would a 3,000-pound bomb do to a bomb shelter?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Do you think Israel would stop themselves from blowing up a bomb shelter?
I'm not sure I understand the point.
Well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
They have 2,000. They have bunker busters. They've used bunker busters on refugee camps. They've used bunker busters on hospitals. Why the f would they stop themselves from using it on a bomb shelter?
The first one that they went into, they built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what can we do? Now, it's obviously insanely difficult to say.
I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen under Trump.
I'm in favor of that, by the way.
Don't move on. Don't move on. Oh, my God.
Okay. I mean, good.
I mean, I think
we should call for all aid to be ceased, and I think we should stop protecting them in the UN.
What should have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
Not kill Israeli citizens within the Gaza envelope. in a hope that Hamas could not hold them kidnapped
on October 8th. I mean, I think that there is
concede to the positions of Hamas.
They're hitting strategic sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should have. But let's talk. You know, like to
the
look
leadership
at that
was
moment,
underground.
Yeah, to look at that. To look at that moment in history,
genocide,
like maybe it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment.
Why are there?
They had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
I can't believe.
And so, what should they have done?
I can't beliave his audience legitimately and Ethan thought
you're
that
avoiding,
like Sam would agree with.
Okay, I think what they should have done is
so
begun
empowering anyone who's knowledgeable on this issue that isn't brain broken from Zionism is 100% going to have these exact same opinions. What the fuck?
They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed, but I don't think
you actually don't believe that that's a real thing. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their government.
Well, wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a realistic way, not in a fairy
tale,
tale, Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been, it has been quite clear. Their agenda has been, since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks, the agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch Zionists in Israel. The agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do. Anything.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, anything they would have done would have been.
Poor Israel, man.
There was no plan that on this day they were going to do this.
I feel so bad for Israel for 76 years of apartheid. They just had no other option but to do genocide. That is the logical conclusion of Ethan's argument, by the way. That is how crazy this is.
The agenda.
What, in terms of like attacking Gaza or inciting an attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic. So I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
I mean, Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the war?
By releasing the hostages?
Listen. Israel has said time and time again that release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe that's
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite. I believe that
you really haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when it depends when they were made too, right? Like
hostage family protests in Israel, Ethan, is because the Netanyahu government doesn't want to release the hostages because they want to keep using the hostages as a reason to keep bombing Gaza because they want to ethnically cleanse the Gaza population. They want to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. You are so stupid.
Coming into Gaza.
Why are you so stupid? You don't understand anything.
That's not true.
Israel's actions.
That didn't happen either.
Being inevitable. Like, when do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing. But in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes, I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of
just a slower
pointed
genocide.
out but didn't really acknowledge,
when
is
do you
that
think they should have ended?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission. But I think militarily, they probably have some obligation to their citizenry, at the very least, to like take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many Hamas leaders, how many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to, I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before destroying the whole thing. Like, obviously they approached it completely wrong, right? But there are ways, I think, that could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of
the principal negotiator who had never actually held a weapon. They killed him in Tehran. This is ridiculous.
They were marching in the Great March of Return, week after week after week.
Sam, was there Hamas activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the snipers, no, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
Hamas activity at the Great
There
March
was
of Return.
Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence. They were like trying to cross the border.
They were
but not
attacking
militants. Militants were trying to cross the border.
That's not true.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Defending
Correct.
Sniping like paramedics at the Great March of Return, for the record. That's what he is de facto
But I mean,
defending.
again,
sniper rifles.
I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up. It's insane. It's genocidal. It's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the opposite, Sam.
I don't think Israel is.
Well, you asked me
peace.
what should they have done. I mean, obviously they're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled hospitals and universities and 80-90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but like a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're putting this on me like I'm saying.
No. I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder
right here.
what you must think of an Israeli body politic with this level of atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
Listen, I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that is because I have a much more theoretically jaded view
in this chat
of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
To what? Well, Sam,
I just wonder, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Listen, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable.
Yeah, of course there's crazy takes in here. Like you, chum guzzler. You came in here. It's not
inevitable.
locked.
And I think, like,
all you need to do is follow for 10 minutes. His chat is all paid members and subscribers. Don't you think that there's a major difference there? I don't safeguard myself from the opinions of people like you, cum guzzler 22.
Okay, very few. And
yeah, no.
I was exposing them more than the American population writ large.
Ethan's chat is members only.
To perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely, I mean, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. Where Hamas, and again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But you know, Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages.
Of course, they thought they could. I don't deny that. Yeah.
Of deterring Israel from entering, and that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government is to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that there is
I wonder about that last
Sam
part.
Seder, what a fucking nightmare, but with Ethan saying
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I mean, you know, I think that...
I said that's what they're doing.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic...
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis, I mean, obviously not all Israelis.
There's definitely
but I think that
there are definitely a lot of Israelis that do want the Israeli civilians to die, and certainly the Gazan civilians to die as well.
To maintain this government.
Yes.
Believe
that's what the polls say. Ethan loves his polls when he's talking about Zionism.
That their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent the threat to Israel. And I think that's...
Oh, yes, Sam, speak for everyone.
I mean, I think that's...
They're so mad at Sam Seder. They literally...
A twisted perspective.
Before this conversation took place, I need you to understand, their subreddit was talking about how Ethan should Sam Seder me, because they thought that Ethan and Sam Seder would be in agreement with one another.
And now they're calling him a self-hating Jew. So I think characterizing like the majority of the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But you know...
I feel Ethan is far less extremist than
I mean, I'm basing it on conversations with...
You feel that way because he was trying to present himself in this conversation as someone who is actually pro-Palestinian in an effort to use that agreement with Sam against me on Friday. And even then, it unfolded pretty quickly when he got a little bit of pushback, not realizing that Sam has Sam has opinions almost identical to mine on this issue, because that's what every well-read person on this matter would think if they have a humanity.
Certainly, they want hostages, and again, not all Israelis. But you know, look, I can make analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But you know, the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has like 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about the.
That's what he's talking about. Those weren't
to release the hostages.
No, the hostage protests weren't that
hostages.
Yeah.
But even, I don't think the hostage protests were that big, but it doesn't matter. It was pretty large. But those people literally still turned around and, according to the polls, said they want the violence to continue in Gaza. They just want to stop it for now.
Or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has to, and I know, I'll look this up.
Deal with this.
I don't
500,000 Israel.
Wait. Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea
is this Israelis that or Israeli
Gazans
Jews?
Can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza. That is my opinion.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten they've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th. And that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they're cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes. Well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
Ethan?
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam,
dude, Ethan should talk to an Israeli anti-Zionist. It will probably melt him. Okay. Ethan should talk to
research,
like a Messervot guy or Dr. Ofer
Kasif.
He will literally melt on the spot.
34%.
He should ask an Israeli anti-Zionist, an Israeli Jew who's an anti-Zionist, what their take is on Israeli society, because they say some fucking way worse shit about their own country.
But that's all the most
it's horrible.
Or maybe he should talk to a therapist. Honestly, I don't know why he's doing all this.
That
because
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they've become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it's an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that, and like,
yeah, it's just really
it just feels hopeless sometimes. But
I guess it certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC, and that's
well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war.
You disagree
and
with
it's
me
something
on,
that we should be doing.
I mean, there are some significant disagreements, even that you brought up.
I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. Certain.
We won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child. But,
well, I'll say this: this was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that we. What do we disagree on? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's ultimately the disagreements
He's trying to farm it. See?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not. It's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back. And,
I thought you would agree on everything.
Well, they wanted the hostages back. I don't know.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire, and then the Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreements is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
No.
I'm not here to adjudicate what.
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
No, well, he's just trying to get a clip.
You summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think that, it is what it is, and I think I don't remember this conversation, we can put into AI and have it summarize it. But I'll
do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
All right.
We'll leave it to the robots. Okay. Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree, but we managed to find things to fight about anyway, and that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
That happens. That's my understanding. Appreciate it. All right, take it easy, man.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Ooh. Thanks, I mean, I'll have the convo now if he wants to. By the way, I'll talk to Ethan right now if he wants to. Oh, he said.
But okay.
He said that was way different than what I thought it was going to be.
I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people that are highly opinionated hashing it out. And I think I personally like when people do that.
Yeah,
I don't get turned off by the combativeness.
Thank God we're having this open, free discourse.
That's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is like, again, on the larger points we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fuck. You're
the king of hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli
He has too much
citizenry?
optimism for Israel. That's his downfall. It's because he's too kind, dude.
The most.
That was his downfall. He's too hopeful for a better tomorrow.
And I mean, Sam is older, and he's in his 50s or something, and so maybe he's just more jaded.
Dan,
yeah, he
stop.
Definitely is more jaded.
Dan, have some
decency,
and
Dan. So, right?
Listen, dude, he needs you more than you need him. Just be honest.
The Jewish person,
he needs you more than you need him. You can be honest. Please be honest for the sake of Ethan. If you want to actually save your friend and your boss, be honest in this moment instead of constantly
when trying to
feeding into his narcissism.
To avoid
oh my
criticizing
God.
Hassan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right?
This makes me so sad because Dan was a fucking massive Hasanabi head. Like I thought he was like a radical guy. I thought
obviously I greatly disagree with him, and I think it's kind of.
Someone needs to someone that Ethan trusts.
It's funny how he talks about how
real conversation with him.
To call out anti-Semitism or how ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like when at the same time.
It's a weird thing because you don't really want to I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with the here and now of your beliefs and everything, but the degree to which the harassment that you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, it is part of the story. And
yeah, it's true.
I don't know. It's tricky because I get the impulse to not want to get into it, but that is a component of all of this.
And unfortunately, whatever Sam's been peppered with before the debate, I've seen is his co-host telling him that I'm obsessed with Hasan, that I'm having a mental
you really
health
showed that
break,
you're not
that
obsessed
I'm
by showing clip chimps of me to him to be you should disagree with it, putting words in my mouth.
But ultimately, I find I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that.
Ethan is focusing too much on trying to win the debate instead of having a rational conversation with another human being.
He was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as it doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza.
The fandom is starting to see it.
First of all,
and I'm
two
glad
different issues, kind of. Whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise into anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's connected to one another, though. It's connected to one another because of that dangerous conflation that Sam Seder tried to explain to you, Ethan.
Obviously,
the
one has
dangerous
an
conflation between
immediate
Judaism, Jews, and Zionism. That is precisely the reason why anti-Semitism is skyrocketing this country, as it always does whenever Israel does sieges. That is why attacking people like myself, who actually cut that dangerous conflation and never even give an inch to that dangerous conflation, should not be your enemy. It should be people that actually consistently say Zionism and Judaism are actually directly associated with one another. It is people like yourself, Ethan, that participate in this dangerous conflation, that feed into the anti-Semitic tendencies of people.
Anti-Semitism, what isn't, and when you're
there's never been a moment where I've considered anti-Semitism to be even remotely permissible. I have fought against anti-Semitism my whole career. I've been doxxed, swatted, and attacked and harassed by the same neo-Nazis that you seemingly find yourself comfortably aligned with now, Ethan. What the f***? What the f*** are you saying? Little old Israel over here. Oh, no.
I didn't see it that way, but, I'm not Jewish, so I found it interesting that you guys are having this conversation to give both perspectives. One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both could have defined what
these are the freaks.
Is.
Those are the fucking freaks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's
these are
big
the rabid freaks that come in here and say some
I agree, and it's such a stupid word. Because it has such a broad meaning. And like when Hasan says Zionist tendencies,
but they get banned off the platform for doing like this.
Who I think is avoiding the question, frankly, because he knows that it looks bad. He doesn't want to answer.
In this community
so
would
he
ever
responds by saying, like,
even for
you think this matters? Let's not talk about the specifics of what Zionist tendency is. Because clearly Hasan's not anti-Semitic. Obviously, he doesn't have the context.
And by the way, anti-Semite for a year.
I'm still willing to give Hasan the benefit of the doubt that he's not anti-Semitic, right?
What are you talking about?
Once again, as I've stated,
you are?
Yeah, I'm willing to.
Even Dan is laughing because he's called me a vile, rabid anti-Semite for a year now. So gracious.
He's
I'm
very
not an anti-Semite.
Fostering a community that is blatantly hateful and anti-Semitic. He's comfortable, expressing these ideas irresponsibly the way he communicates, which is what that clip displays, I think.
Oh, my God.
So while I don't think he's anti-Semitic, I think he's responsible for perpetuating a lot of it.
You're irresponsible with the ways in which you have defended Israel's actions by presenting it as like Hamas instigating this genocide. That is not only irresponsible, that is morally repugnant.
Because, frankly,
we know what he means
really
with
nothing
Zionist
positive
tendency.
to say about what he did.
Zionism
and
is
so
fascism.
Sam took I guess, if you want to talk
towards
about debate, and Sam's a great debater, right?
As a tendency towards fascism. That is what I believe.
Everybody knows that. He's a great conversationalist. He doesn't really get the best of. Nobody really gets the best of him in conversation.
Why is Ethan in
I mean, the
Breaking
only
Bad
way
right now?
he could really take that on was to be
silent?
like, it doesn't matter, in the totality of things. So that's the road he took. And
Hasan
I was
is fuming
disappointed
so
by
hard
that
right now.
as well.
Yeah, of course I'm fuming. I'm fuming
But
because
at the end of
my
the day,
former podcast
I knew it
co-host
was
has
unlikely
slandered me
that
for a
he was
goddamn
gonna say
year,
a
trying to
bad
get me
thing about
deplatformed.
Hasan. I was
Got my friends
specifically trying
deplatformed.
not to
Got
even go
pro-Palestinian
there.
voices
In fact, when I showed him
deplatformed
that
at a
first
time
video of
when
me
the
talking
American
about
fascist government is literally actively trying to revoke the First Amendment rights of all Americans inevitably by using Israel as a talking point, by using Israel as a way to enter the conversation, by using Israel to enter the precedent into the Constitution to completely erode people's First Amendment rights. This will not just harm people like myself. It will harm you as well in the end. This is my argument.
So here's what I'll say about Israel.
Now he's just like talking about how now he's just going to rewatch like how pro-Palestine he is to this audience that's watching. Of course I'm going to fume. The reason why I'm fuming is because he is doing Hasbara. The reason why I'm fuming is because even in his he tried to use this as an opportunity, thinking that he was going to actually agree with Sam Seder, that Sam Seder was going to be like, oh, wow, it seems like you're super pro-Palestine. Why are people calling you anti-Palestine? It seems like you might be getting attacked by anti-Semites. That's what he thought was going to happen. So he could use that clip on Friday. That was his big smoking gun. Okay? I assumed that was his big smoking gun. Or maybe he was going to try to bring Dan Saltman on or Destiny on in the hopes that I get banned, which I will, by the way. If Dan Saltman or Destiny appears on Friday when we have this conversation, if Ethan is still willing and able to do it, I will get banned. He knows that, which is precisely the reason why I assume he will try to bring them forward, just as I called this initially. Just as I called what was going to take place in this conversation initially. I'm telling you right now, if he tries to, oh my God, Sam Seder me, what a nightmare with like a person that has been banned, I won't be able to have this conversation with him. I will have to exit out of this conversation because Twitch will absolutely ban me. I know for a fact. Okay? So, no, I already have. I've already talked to my Twitch rep. I did. Shut the up. I did already. I know. They said, no, you will get banned. Do you understand? So, for that reason, if he tries some like that, I assume this was a two-parter, okay? This was a two-parter. I suspect that he was initially going to try to get any clip that shows Sam Seder agreeing with him to be like, see, your ordained designated Jew agrees with me or something along those lines. And then be like, why do you call me pro-Israel? Okay, that's what he thought he was going to be able to get. It didn't happen. So now I assume his second smoking gun is to probably bring up like Destiny or Dan Saltman with the hopes that I get banned. Because if I don't back out of that conversation, I get banned. If I back out of that conversation when that happens, he will go, oh, you ran away from Destiny. You're so scared. You're just like Steven Crowder. And that's the problem. Okay, he is going to try to present it. I'm telling you right now, if he tries to do some shit like that, that means he doesn't want to have a real conversation with me on this issue, that he's going to try to pull some shtick because he knows that he can't have this real conversation with me. Okay, just like he thought that Sam Seder would agree with him. And then he realized that even in the most charitable pro-Palestine approach that he tried to present himself as, Sam was able to, without knowing anything else, Sam was able to recognize that no, there is a lot of defense for Israel here that is unconscionable, especially when we're comparing it to 16 months of endless bombing, child murder. He saw through Ethan.
I think that's part
and he didn't get what he wanted across. So now I think he's going to be petty and try to get me banned.
Look
or
what happens
in an effort
when you
for
want
myself to
support
preserve
peace,
myself in this situation, and I back away, I click out when he does the Destiny thing.
Right conclusion,
then
that
he's going to say, "Oh, you ran away."
All the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
See, like I have, friends or family even that will say that they don't believe there's an innocent Israeli, and I think obviously stuff like that is super dangerous, and
I agree.
I'll never agree with that. But in terms of like, the Pew research is often what's referenced. And again, Sam brought that up, that there was only 19% of people.
Can't you do it offline? Are you f***ing insane? You think I would let Ethan control the narrative and manipulate the footage by doing it offline? No, of course I'm going to f***ing stream my side. Why would I do that? What are you guys talking about? No, dual streaming to YouTube is not the same, okay? And I can't get permission from the CEO. Contrary to what people think, Dan does not listen to my demands, okay? That's not a thing. They've already explained that I will get banned.
Do they want to end the war? I think this is I mean, yeah, it's disturbing, you know what I mean? But
yeah, he said Hamas could have ended the war if they released the hostages. Hamas did offer to release all hostages. Hamas says it will release all civilian hostages if IDF stops strikes. That was on October 17, 2023. This is from the Jerusalem Post, by the way. So understand, when he says all of these things about Israel, he doesn't know what the f*** he's talking about. He's just not knowledgeable on this. This is the unfortunate reality, okay? In the most charitable estimation of the past year, if I'm making the most charitable assessment that is like literally impossibly charitable here, he simply doesn't know what he's talking about. And he has people in his ear that's constantly feeding him wrong information. And he's just regurgitating that because it pairs perfectly with his narcissistic tendencies. Ethan Klein has been a victim of anti-Semitic smears and anti-Semitic attacks his entire career. This is not something that I would ever, this is not something that is in dispute, okay? This is something that I know. This is something that I've brought up over and over again. Now he thinks the real anti-Semitic that he has received is now paired up with people who are anti-Zionist within his own community, and he can't let that go. He thinks all of this is a direct consequence of people saying that he's a Zionist because he's a Jew. Oh, I've said the right things. Why do you still get mad at me? I've said the right things. Why do you still get mad at me? I'm simply making a joke about Aaron Bushnell. I've said the right things. Why are you still getting mad at me? Why are you leaving my community? It must be because some guy is out there feeding information and radicalizing this audience, radicalizing my audience. It must be Hasan. And it's really interesting that he said this, like he's inferred this, he's implied this over and over again. And for the first year after our podcast ended, up until October of last year, October of 2024, up until October of 2024, I consistently defended Ethan up until he started going after actively and getting and successfully deplatforming pro-Palestinian advocates. I did not say a single thing. I defended him because I didn't know. I thought his initial October 7 response was sufficient. I thought he probably has a little bit of liberal Zionism in him, okay? but he is amenable. He is someone who has a heart. He is open-minded. He is open-minded to someone like myself who I believe he trusts. And I was wrong. He was not open-minded to this position at all. I thought I could move him from having like a squishy liberal Zionist position to basically someone who was a anti-Zionist. You know, Hasan, just show up Friday, bro.
That both are important. And obviously,
Hasan's going to show.
Again,
of course,
the
I'm going to show.
totality of what's happening in Gaza is not in dispute about.
Hasan
which
is not
like
coming
more.
Friday. What do you mean?
But I do think that it's important, and I care about Israel, and I care about Israelis. You know, that's it. And so I choose to see the good, and to see the optimistic, and like obviously I have no effect over what the public thinks about the war. I'm not living there. I'm not. When I was living there, I voted against Netanyahu.
Please don't try to bring a banned person.
And by the way, Netanyahu lost the popular vote. He only won because he made a coalition with some psychopath.
Hasan is a fake. Hasan, stop telling your chat we fuck with Destiny. Please don't try to bring a banned person on.
When I voted, won the popular vote.
I will
because
get
of the
banned.
parliamentary system where you make coalitions to get over 50%.
We'll have to leave the conversation.
They were unable to secure the victory.
I think Netanyahu may be the devil. Like, honestly, even his voice, I think he may be the devil.
Why the fuck am I a paid member, by the way? How does this work?
To
Did they give me like a lifetime paid membership?
Dude, that's so fucked up.
He gave one to a senator. And
I think that's so
or congressman. I forget who it was. He's like, yo,
it was John Fetterman.
Yeah, he's like, yo, that was dope when you guys did that. I have a family friend whose son had a beeper go through his stomach. Like, and it's his
I just
crazy.
don't.
The president's like taking a picture with.
I didn't even bring up
I don't
Destiny.
think
I said a banned
just like
person. Dan Saltman is also a banned person. Looking for the anti-Semitism in this community. Anyway.
Those beepers was like nauseating. Like, what are you doing?
Look at this. Look at these freaks. Was on party with a Diddy at a brothel. What the is this statement, dude? These people are brain broken.
Yeah, he is. You're right. But ultimately, I think that's ultimately where.
How about Boner Box? I mean, I don't care about that. He's not banned, so who gives a shit? I assume he will. I don't think he's going to have this conversation with me directly. Okay? I don't think he's going to have this conversation with me directly. I think he's going to try and desperately bring someone else on to either get me banned or to have this conversation in his stead, because he knows that this conversation will not be this conversation will not go in his direction, will not go the way he wants it to. Every time they claim there's anti-Semitism in the community, they're always conflating it with and referencing anti-Zionism. I know.
Hasan is pathetically typing in our chat again.
Wait, what do you mean?
I can talk now or Friday. I don't care. Up to you. Please don't try to bring a banned bro, don't worry. I'm not doing that. You're afraid I'm going to bring on Destiny? That's stupid. I'm not going to do that.
Stop.
I promise you, Hasan.
It's not just Destiny. It's Dan Saltman as well. He's
in
also
fact, the
banned.
people here will not allow me to bring on Destiny.
I'm no Dan Saltman either.
Honest.
And it's not because I'm afraid of them. I can't. I will get banned. I need people to understand. This is because I will get banned. If he brings on Sam Hyde or Dan Saltman or Destiny, I will get banned instantly. Okay? And I didn't even name Destiny in that. The reason why I said don't bring a banned person on was because I don't want him to bring any banned person on and do some to try to get me banned. Okay?
Wait, and this is why I prefaced what I was saying was I'm not an expert. Finding polling, I was wrong saying that support for a two-state solution was at a high. It looks like it kind of plateaued around 55% throughout the 2010s, but it was at a high in 2010 of 71% of Israelis supported a two-state solution. It looks like that number is now in like.
Anyway, all right, we're done with this portion of the broadcast. We're gonna get back to the real news now. Please clarify why you would get banned from Papa Twitch, because Twitch has a very hard policy. Twitch is a platform that actually rigorously applies its terms of service, and because of that reason, I've been banned for silly shit like saying cracker in the past, right? And like when Aiden Ross was banned, for example, if someone were to have him on their stream, they would get banned. If Aiden Ross was in a YouTube video that someone was watching, they wouldn't get banned. In the past, they would have, but Twitch changed that policy. Not a permaban, though, more of a suspension. Yeah, but why the fuck would I entertain that, dude? What are you talking about? It's considered ban evasion, okay? It's considered ban evasion to have a banned streamer on your stream to talk to a banned streamer. The chatter you pulled up earlier for being a Nazi was nuked off the website permanently about 30 seconds later for your information. So much for this community plus the Twitch platform allowing anti-Semitism. Exactly. Anyway, now let's get back to an actual W. Might be box though, because he had that dumbass on previously. Yeah, I don't care about that. I don't have an issue with that. But, you know, that was a productive conversation from our perspective, and I hope it was productive for some in Ethan's community to actually see that, because I saw posts about people saying like, oh, Ethan and Sam Seder should just join up in arms and attack Hasan. Like, they were so delusional. And the question here, this is a very important jump off point for many of you. Okay. This is a very important jump off point. If you're in here from Ethan's community, why did you have that perspective? What have you consumed so far, and how sheltered were you from the truth that you thought that someone like myself and someone like Sam Seder would not be almost entirely aligned on this issue? You have to remember, you have to think about that. This is a moment of self-reflection, because many people I saw in his community were like, oh, dude, yeah, Sam Seder is going to actually, agree with Ethan completely. And then they're going to move on to like attack Hasan together. Maybe Ethan can use Sam Seder to criticize Hasan. And if you thought that, then you were completely oblivious to his perspective. So why did you think that? I know why you thought that. You thought that because Ethan has been presenting a false narrative. He's been presenting a false narrative about me, as he tried to do against Sam Seder as well. And he has presented a false narrative about Sam Seder as well. It's ridiculous. Self-reflect, please. What's the false narrative? Well, the number one false narrative is one that he already backtracked in the aftermath of this conversation, where he says, oh, maybe Hasan is not an anti-Semite, but he actually allows anti-Semitism or something. And that's like a new meta. He has called me a vile, vicious, rabid anti-Semite over and over again, knowing full well that I do not have an anti-Semitic bone in my body. It's bullshit. And it's ironically enough that I'm being called an anti-Semite by him, while for specifically my advocacy against anti-Semitism. Every time I am decoupling Israel, Zionism, and Judaism, I'm actually working against anti-Semitism. Every time Ethan brings that conversation back to, well, all Jews are Zionists, he is making that dangerous conflation that is creating more anti-Semitism. No, that was the only point he had since the beginning. His last year of harassment has been for nothing. He's using the same initial argument. He literally has said you would call Jews the K word if you could. Yeah, it's insane. It's so insane. And even in the clip that he's bringing up, like, I'm literally saying, regardless of background, looks like someone attended a Hasan 101 seminar. This whole debate is so Hasan coded, and the fact he's getting agitated shows he doesn't like being challenged. Please, I really, really hope, given that Ethan presented this initially as a person that was going to 100% agree with him, I hope that his community, this is like their last shot, I think, of like seeing, like, coming back to reality and not falling into this like complete, this very narrow focused pro-Israel but kind of anti-Israel attitude that Ethan keeps reflecting. Honestly, they're kind of glazing you. They're attributing all of this as if it's your original thoughts, like you invented anti-Zionist talking points. I know. That's what's so crazy. Ethan Klein is going to have a conversation with Avi Shleim or Elon Pape, and they're going to be like, Elon Pape got brainwashed by Hasan. He wrote the book. I'm brainwashed by him. Okay? Like, it's so stupid. Like, there were so many moments in that conversation where I think Sam could have been way more vicious if it wasn't Ethan and someone else, and there simply wasn't enough time, like the bomb shelter.
There's not a single dissenting voice with his straight up radical, anti-American, anti-Semitic fucking...
Bro, I can't believe this man went from dunking on Steven Crowder to saying Steven Crowder actually he's anti-American, radical anti-American.
Now, instead of actually addressing a single point, he stops it before he gets there. He can't...
Lol, Ethan owns Sam, to be honest. I love that. Listen, I'm proud of you. And I think your family is proud of you too, that you are finally able to dress yourself on your own, and you were able to actually open up an account all on your own and be able to type those words together. I'm proud of you. No, this is a moment that deserves praise and congratulations. Okay. Clearly, since the car crash, things were not the same for you, but it seems like you're making great improvements. I mean, it's kind of funny that you're, openly demonstrating that, but it's cool. It's cool that you have You've done it. You are able to type this stuff on your own, all on your own, without anybody else. Where's your pearls at? Okay, well, you kind of failed on the second point, didn't you? You wrote it correctly the first time, and then all of a sudden, communist, champagne, socialist, Lamau. Okay, you got it. You're good. I'm proud of you. Again, you're showing that you can even react in real time. Bro, I like your content, but you're in the wrong on this, and Ethan made some good points. They attacked a fence. Israel is practically groomed into doing a genocide. Yeah, I know. He's blaming you right now for his failure. Ain't no way, dude. Stop. He's still talking about me? What the f***? Due to their incredible anti-Semitic opinions, and that he is simply misunderstood. He's back to the clip compies. Hold on, I gotta pee. And that he agrees with everything that Sam Seder says wholeheartedly. And Sam, being the kind and gentle being that he is, will not push super hard to really figure out what Ethan's worldview looks like.
He could not have been more wrong.
Yeah, he could not have been more wrong. And by the way, he got to stop making predictions because those don't work out for him.
Yeah, I mean, just objectively, that is the opposite of what played out. So,
but I laugh because he's trying to poison the well ahead of me and Sam agreeing on everything. Although Sam was not very sweet and lovely, he came out ready to go, and that's good. I'm always ready. But I'll tell you guys, I am brave.
Yeah, you've sold us.
I mean, who would go against Sam Seder willingly, Dan?
Not Steven Crowder. That's when
Crowder's been running his whole life.
Obviously not that one.
I'm not running from nothing or nobody.
It ruined Crowder's life.
Carry the load. What?
I said it ruined Crowder's life. Literally, since he did that debate.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I wasn't kidding when I said we ruined his life.
It was funny because at one point Sam took off his glasses and said, "Steven, look into the camera." He's like, "From here on out, it's all downhill for you."
That's crazy that was true.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't have predicted that there'd be a scandal where he's abusing his wife on camera.
Right.
He went from getting a $50 million deal on the table to being like a nobody.
Yeah. No, that doesn't work either.
Doesn't work either.
Watch it.
What a it's like. Anyway. Yeah, so, here's Hasan.
Oh, you've been running away from him. Yeah, I wonder why Ethan Klein won't talk to Sam Seder. Just like he was too scared to talk to Sam Seder in private. I'm not running. I'm not ducking Ethan at all. I'll talk to him. Maybe I'll even have Sam Seder attend.
This just happened like 10 minutes ago.
Right, yeah.
Perhaps this is why my former podcast host is too afraid to talk to Sam Seder. Oh, my God, bro. This obsession.
Wait, what is he saying? Is he showing how brave he is? It took a year for him to finally talk to Sam Seder.
There it is. You got what you wanted, and the people are feasting. Watching two Jewish men duke it out about ministry.
It took him a year, and he got destroyed. What is this?
We agree on everything.
Bro. Oh, my God.
Hey,
oh boy, this doesn't look like it went good, but I don't know if Chad can be trusted, no offense.
Hey. A lot of people tuned in for this, huh? 50,000.
He said Sam agreed with everything. Does he not know? Does he not know that Sam Seder is a whole adult with a public profile who will see him just simply saying this stuff? Oh, the cope, man. He literally is saying that him and Sam Seder agree with everything. Yeah, the cope here is what? Only going to be entertained? Only going to be entertained for a brief moment? Is that what it is? That video was about how he should talk to you, and he only showed you mentioning Sam. I know. He said you were wrong about Sam being nice to him. I think Sam was very nice to him. What? Okay, I think people need to understand something. That was kitty gloves from Sam. Sam also is not like a contentious person. When he debates libertarians, some of the stupidest people on the planet, he will still maintain that same calm demeanor. There's very few instances where I've seen Sam like get rattled. One was against Tim Pool, and the other was unironically against Ethan at a certain point where he was like, why are you consistently conflating Judaism and Zionism? Meanwhile, his chat is calling Sam a terror supporter. Wait, what? Sam is a terror supporter, but you, Ethan, need to do your homework. So much of what he said was pure lies. Okay, I'm sorry, but this has to be someone from Israel. Like, this sounds like someone. He's a supporter of terror. I felt particularly bothered by Ethan's constant "I agree with you" nonsense because it completely neuters the actual critique Sam was attempting to levy. Like, how do you argue with someone when every valid rebuttal is just met with "I agree" and then completely reverted right afterwards? You can't get anywhere. I know Ethan Klein is doing something that is incredible in this conversation, and what he's doing. Oh, it is shekels. Okay, well, I didn't realize that was the sign for shekel, but I could just tell from the way that he dressed down Sam Seder, being like, he's a terror supporter. But you, Ethan, need to do your homework. So much of what he said was pure lies. That's why I'm saying most of his audience left. These are the people that came to him for the Zionism at this point. A bit ago, Ethan said him and Sam talked about immaterial topics because they talked about the genocide instead of Hasan. Yeah. They had to agree to disagree on whether or not criticism of Zionism is anti-Semitic. Lol. That is the entire argument for the smear campaign. Yes. So as long as Sam understands this better than anybody else, because he is who he is, he's had opinions that has changed throughout time. And for that very purpose, he understands better than anybody else. I've had private conversations with Sam throughout the past year, not about Ethan, by the way, but just in general about what to do in our personal lives where we have friends, people that we are close to that can find themselves in the throes of radicalization in the aftermath of October 7th, specifically Jewish people, okay? This is something that I've talked to a lot of my Jewish friends about in general. My anti-Zionist Jewish friends are also going through the exact same issues with people that cannot let go of the social conditioning of Zionism, cannot let go of the idea that Zionism is actually supposed to be for good. It's like this good idea, not a bad one, because it undermines everything. It undermines everything I've known. It undermines everything I've learned my whole life. If I were to re-examine my relationship with Zionism, I have to re-examine everything, which is why Sam was so nice. It's very difficult. It is very difficult. That's why if you listen to anti-Zionist Jews, they talk about this all the time. That's precisely the reason why I had, as one of Twitch's leading Jews, OG gamer, professional racist, America First, finest groypers, and the Legion of Kekistan have been telling me to get in an oven for the last 20 years online, but I haven't felt true anti-Semitism on the internet until Hasanabi started flaunting his massive MAGA pecs in my face. Not cool, dog. Slasher. Bro, they're gonna clip this and be like, Slasher, Jewish journalist Slasher agrees Hasan is anti-Semitic. Oh no. It's no wonder Sam got so passionate. Lillard puts up with the conflation of Jewishness with Zionism every day. Yeah, so here's the issue. They're doing the Hasan flew into private jet to Coachella criticism right now. He's sauceless. Sorry for being this kind of chatter right now. I'm stunned at how stupid Ethan is. Yeah. I don't care about any of that shit. He can keep smearing me all day, every day. Okay, that's whatever. He needs to feed. He basically needs to feed people with something. He feels like a bruised little bird. Okay, he feels like a bruised bird, and he's licking his wounds, and he has to give red meat to his audience to be like, no, guys, Hasan is still bad. Okay. Are you going to talk to him about the drama or stick to Israel-Palestine? What do you think? Do you think I'm in the business of trying to talk about drama? Do you think I want to talk to him about drama? No. It's true that 56% of Israeli support ending the war for the hostages as of last week's Channel 11 poll. Meanwhile, the coalition is practically unstoppable mandate of 68 seats as Bibi consolidates power. How is the conclusion here not the world should pressure Israel externally to end the war? What is Ethan's point? He has no point. Time without an OO, as you probably have gotten at this point. His point is, I need to defend. What? Okay, everybody shut up. His point is, I need to defend my position. I'm dug too deep. I've dug in too deep. I don't want to do self-reflection. I don't want to change course. This was his opportunity to try and desperately change the trajectory by being like, see, Sam Seder agrees with me. Look at the way Sam Seder agrees with me, and then try to end this arc in his content, because he only sees people as toys to play with or content to be consumed, and it's mostly just trying to desperately belittle him. Belittle others in the process. Thank you, Sam Seder. Now shut the fuck up, Ethan. You are not the victim. Yeah, there were so many moments in that conversation where he basically brought up, from the POV of someone who doesn't care about Ethan, why are you open to debate him? Because Ethan Klein at this point he had 50,000 people listening to him talk to Sam Seder, and you saw the audience. He is a sizable content creator with a platform, and he's using every waking moment of that platform talking about Israel to basically attack pro-Palestinian voices, advocates. and he's getting a lot of attention from the other slop tubers as well. And the unfortunate reality is a lot of these apolitical slop tubers, okay, that present themselves as apolitical centrists or whatever, they do have a capacity to change people's minds, because a lot of dumb people just kind of want to watch a fucking YouTube drama video and get their notes from that, okay? Ethan is exposing you for flying private with David Dobrik. What are you talking about? This is not an expose. This is something that I have talked about, something that we've memed about a million times over. This is not an expose. This is what I mean. This is the remaining fan base that Ethan has, is like people that only care about this drama. But in that process, while they're getting all this drama, they're also developing a false narrative. They're also developing a false reality of how things are. There were a couple key moments that instantly like triggered my Hasbro alarms. Like, I'll have you know, Sam, there's not a single public bomb shelter in Gaza. Like, what the are you talking about? What do you think a bunker buster does to a goddamn bomb shelter? If he ain't ending the stream, no reason he can't hop on a call right now. Oh, I agree. I don't know why he doesn't want to have a call now. I don't know why you spend so much time on Ethan. As I've said already, treat this as if Asmongold is doing this kind of Hasbro, okay? Treat this as if Ben Shapiro is doing this kind of Hasbro, except Ben Shapiro has no motion right now. Ethan has more motion than Ben Shapiro. That's it. Like, look at how excited he got to deliver this talking point, as though Sam hasn't ever heard this before, as though people who are pro-Palestine have not heard this a million times over.
By the way, just there's not one.
Wait, hold on. If he's, dude, at this point, if he's still watching clips of me, why don't you just talk to me in person? What is happening? Like, what is he doing here? Let's see. I'm gonna DM in the chat. I'm gonna say, hey man, since you talked to Sam, I think we could have a more productive convo now, since you seemingly have enough time to watch clips of me. Definitely down to do it Friday, though. Peace and love. That's what I said. I said, hey man, since you talked to Sam, I think we can have a more productive convo now, since you seemingly have enough time to watch clips of me. Definitely down to do it Friday, though. Peace and love.
Are we using the term master bedroom?
Are we using the term master bedroom?
I just say it's my room.
Yeah, I think a master sword. What's next? You want Zelda to change the name of his sword?
Too much passive aggressiveness, I think? No, it's good. He plans to Friday. You're already talking on Friday. Hasan, please get to covering the news. Okay, that's true. I probably should do that. Get off your high horse. Bet you still haven't watched the nuke, hypocrite. Oh, he saw it, I think.
In Marvel Rivals right now. Does that mean?
That's fucked up, love.
Whoa.
Wait, you're past Celestial?
No. The season reset, so I'm in a low rank now.
He got knocked back down.
Oh, that's dude, I'm sorry.
So we're looking like about 26% say no, to 74% say yes.
I love our audience. You guys, you're very reasonable.
Bing bong. Do you think it's okay to call it a master bedroom? I think it's fine.
Some of this, unless you can show me evidence otherwise that it is like comes from racism. I am sleeping in my master bedroom. Damn it.
Fair enough. We'll have to.
All right, never mind. They're gonna avoid it.
I'll take it up with customer support. It's serious.
All right, whatever. You read the whole thing and is ignoring you? Yeah. Not sure it's reached your media, but recent reports of Hebrew military correspondents indicated military is pushing for a ground invasion of the famous Al-Muwazi humanitarian zone. 10,000 reservniks will be called in to take over positions in the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria so the conscripts can take over in Gaza. This is huge and will be a massacre. Yeah. They're pretending it didn't happen. It's all good. Maybe they didn't see it. Be charitable. Anyway, let's take a look at this.
By the way, there's not.
This right here in front of a massive audience, for the record, should be treated exactly as a defense of Israel, because that's precisely what it is. Okay, and that is the reason why I treat it as though he is basically like a random person with a massive audience. That is, as soon as you click the way he goes back to reacting to your clips, that's crazy. Aren't you letting 100K people watch Ethan spread his delusions instead of addressing the core? What do you mean? I am. I'm doing it right now.
Not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza? Okay.
I just think that's interesting. It's pretty fucked up, don't you think?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the point. Like,
well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean,
there's a couple reasons as to why there's no public bomb shelters in Gaza. Number one, Israel has no interest in letting any standing structure exist in the Gaza Strip, as they have shown time and time again, because they can just simply say there's Hamas in those mosques, there's Hamas in those hospitals, there's Hamas in those schools, there's Hamas in the UNRWA facilities, there's Hamas inside of the food and grain storage facilities. So having a bomb shelter is basically just putting another crosshair. The notion that being underground will actually preserve you, will save you from being bombed, is also ridiculous, considering that a bunker buster can absolutely eviscerate a goddamn bomb shelter.
I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
I've seen what happened to tunnels under hospitals.
Your statement is...
And then he thought, oh, gotcha, tunnels under hospitals. Look.
Oh, there was... So you say there were tunnels under hospitals?
No one denies that there are tunnels under hospitals, Ethan. What the f*** are you talking about? There's tunnels under everything, okay? If you're talking about Al-Shifa, which he probably doesn't know the name of the f***ing hospital either, and I think Sam can't even recall the name of the hospital in this situation, then yeah, those hospitals were built by Israel.
Hospitals.
Israel
the tunnels were built by Israel.
Built the ones under the first one that they went into. They built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this.
Oh, he doesn't want to get into the weeds on this. He just backs away. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, that whole conversation was like a sophomore in college trying to own a full professor. It was downright embarrassing for E, but he'll never admit it. Yeah. No, I think that a lot of people in his fan base will probably say something along the lines of like, no, you did so good, King. Like, you did such a great job. You did such a great job holding your own against Unc. Dude, this is also my favorite response so far. Look, Oliver posts, what are words? Ethan is so dumb, I feel bad for Unc. In what way? Sam couldn't concede that maybe Israelis aren't evil who want all Palestinians to die out is a terrible argument, especially considering this is an American making the point. A country full of the most warmonger evil people. I think if the H3 fans don't brigade majority report, that's an admission that he got cooked, I think. No, they will brigade regardless. I was worried Ethan would manage to hide his views since Sam isn't a very online person, but I didn't think it would go this bad for E. Yeah, because he buckled in the first sign of resistance. He literally he couldn't like keep up the act that he is like pro-Palestine, because the reality of the matter is, if every single time Ethan wanted to talk about this issue, he just basically rehashed what he said on October 8th or whatever the first leftover episodes was. If he just kept saying that, no one would think he's a pro-Israel guy. They would just be like, yeah, dude, we've heard this a million times already, but yeah, you're clearly not pro-Israel. We get it, okay? But that's the problem. He showed that video and then very quickly betrayed that video by telling Sam, displaying to Sam what his actual current opinion is by, refusing to concede on key points that he would not agree to. He kept saying that he and Sam agreed on everything. Yeah, he's trying to lie. He's trying to lie to his audience to preserve his own sense of dignity. Okay? That's it. He really thought Ethan talking about command center under hospitals, but with Sam, he changed it to tunnels. Yeah. This was Ethan's initial perspective on why Israel must bomb these hospitals.
Listen, I feel like this is a force that's going to help end the war, not keeping hostages and underground and like sending... just continuing to provoke Israel to attack them and putting like military complexes under hospitals, its own people for political gain, is lying to themselves, dude. Holy shit. They literally put command centers under hospitals. That's not even debated.
Yeah. So if he thinks that he could just like keep saying, if he thinks that he can keep saying like, oh, Sam and I agreed on everything, when he couldn't even keep up the appearance in that very moment where obviously that back and forth was didn't go down the way he thought it would, which he recognized and admitted to. I don't know why he keeps saying Sam and I agree on everything. So far, Sam Seder's gotten Ethan to agree with everything he said about Israel and reveal it's all about Ethan's personal grievances with Hasan. Unreal. This was in the beginning of the conversation in the first half hour. It fell apart quickly after that, ironically enough. But the reality of the matter is that he's not able to maintain that position because it's so inconsistent. And ultimately, someone who is more knowledgeable over his positions or what he has said in the past, as opposed to Sam Seder, that at least has the same level of like basic humanity in terms of recognizing the humanity of Palestinians. Yeah, they would make light work of him. All right, should I make a list of things Ethan has said over the past year and ask him, do you still believe the statement? Don't give him any weasel room. When Ethan demanded you bring up in the conversation, then wanted to change the subject once Sam began cooking. Yeah. So here's the situation. He thought he could get like extractions out of Sam that he could use against me. But in the keep going to Disney pedo land, gay boy, your silly Turkish Virgin Mary views are so cute. I'm Lucifer. What the f? Bro, take your meds.